Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books. Today we're talking about the woke diversity office being eliminated at Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, when I say eliminated, I don't mean that they came in and they said, hey, look, everybody in this DEI office, diversity, equity, inclusion, needs to go. I'm pointing at you. I'm David Zaslav. No. That's not exactly what happened. But that's effectively what happened. It's a different company culture now. They made a change. It actually just came out in Hollywood Reporter literally just today. Maybe an hour ago, if that. Very, very interesting update. I want to get into this article and go over it with you. But what you're going to find here is, figure you're David Zaslav, a successful executive. He knows exactly what the game is. He knows exactly what they're trying to do with all the woke stuff. He's not fooled. He's sophisticated. He's been running Discovery since, 2005 as the president. He just made $246 million. And when you hear executives, they made all this money, they made all that money, sometimes they make money for doing practically nothing. He wasn't doing practically nothing. When he got to Discovery, TLC was the learning channel, doing documentary things on butterflies and stuff like that. I mean, there's value to that. But he turned it into a commercial operation. He turned it into TLC, which was doing Honey Boo Boo and things like that. Things that were very interesting and compelling to consumer audiences. He really built that business. He also was in charge of the $14 billion merger with Scripps, which were more international cable companies, and they had sports and things like that. I mean, Discovery, before they merged with WarnerMedia, was already a far-flung international brand. So if you think that a few college SJWs who were given very easy lives by people who wanted to corrupt, look, it is what it is. Corrupt media, corrupt and damage content for their own social justice purposes. If you think he doesn't see that a mile away, he does. He does. He knows. So what did he do about it? He said, hey, okay, well, here's what you do. You take the operation, and instead of it being a burden to the brands and a burden to the employees and a burden to the executives who need to focus on making money, instead of it being a burden, let's turn it into an asset. Let's make it effective. So to do that, he had to restructure the DEI team, okay, with a new focus. So we're going to get into this because it's pretty brilliant. All right, so before we do, please do subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up when you like it. It's a huge help when you do that. It's a huge help when you share the video too, because this has been my focus. And you guys have been great. I've been getting great comments, really, really great distribution on the videos as well. There's other subjects I want to talk about, but I'm really passionate about what's going on at Warner Brothers Discovery because I think we're seeing the end of the woke focus because they're just focused on making money. That's all they're about. So we have 27, 28 videos on the channel right now about Warner Brothers Discovery and what they're doing. That's the playlist. I'll have a link to that, of course, in the comments and in the description below. But yeah, it's a huge, huge help. So thank you so much for the support. All right, so from Hollywood Reporter. Now, when I first see this article, I'm like, I can't even believe this because this was perfect timing for the video I wanted to do today. I always want to do something useful and something a little unique and be able to give you my analysis on it from my experience. So that doesn't mean I can do a video on just anything, but I can speak to this. Warner Brothers Discovery restructures its DEI team, diversity, equity, inclusion, with an international geographic focus. So the first thing that happens with this international focus, the more responsibility that you take on, the more diffuse, the more distributed the influence. So the influence, by the nature of them saying, we're going to take on an international geographic focus, it's as if really smart people sat down and they were like, how do we wipe out this office and completely make its power really, frankly, what it should be, a division of human resources, the opportunity zones or something like that of human resources. How do we do that without it looking like we're actually doing that? Because, just politically correct, investors, things like that. We could all say, well, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Well, investors do care. They care because they know it's part of this larger agenda. You've got BlackRock, you've got big entities that care about a focus on diversity. So you have to at least, and by the way, legitimate diversity, legitimate opportunity. Okay, it is doing that. So it's a good functional office, it's a good functional structure now, but it's not what they wanted it to be. I'm telling you, I don't know, the timing on this is wild, but the woke stuff is ending. It really is. And this is not an independent company. Independent companies doing anti-woke or anti-woke stories and things like that. That is very important, merit-based stories, and it's incredibly helpful. Comicsgate's done it. I'm a part of Comicsgate. Honored to be. It's great. But when a major company does it, it has influence throughout the industry immediately, which is why there's so much panic and so much upset, whether it's in Congress, which this article talks about, or just actors, actresses, whatever, people in the industry. So here's what they did. Quote, "We need to focus on regional markets, which are unique in their challenges," Chief DEI Officer Asif Sadiq says to the Hollywood Reporter. "There will be no domination. There will be no heavy hand or fist that stands over WarnerMedia or any of the Discovery operations. This will be a helpful local human resources opportunity zone type thing." When I say opportunity zone, I mean sometimes you see in a city there are special tax breaks, some special allowances to try to encourage investment and things like that. That's an opportunity zone. That is what this is. But it's not even going to be it's going to be like an opportunity suggestion zone. These people are brilliant, okay? If you like what they're doing, support these guys. Warner Brothers Discovery has restructured its diversity, equity, and inclusion group for the first time since the newly formed company's merger was completed in April. Okay, restructured for the first time. The chief DEI officer, Asif Sadiq, promoted in late July, based in London, the new structure puts an emphasis on handling DEI issues by international region. So, instead of a dictate, instead of something like coming from above, they have these regional executives doing localized efforts to create opportunity for everyone. And what that comes down to is you're sitting across from this guy and he's pointing at you. It's fine. What he's saying is you deserve an opportunity to serve my brands. Okay? You will serve my brand. You will offer me the opportunity to make the best Batman movie ever made, the best Superman movie ever made, the looniest Looney Tunes cartoon ever made. You want to operate with our intellectual property? Completely fine. Consider yourself as a potential employee or as a producer or someone who's doing something with our content as a licensee. You have the opportunity to work on our content and show us how you can do things for our brands that the consumers will love. I don't care what you look like. I don't know how tall you are, what your gender is. Doesn't matter. But what we want, and we will create opportunities for you to pitch us. That's all merit. That's people serving the brands, not the brands serving people's other agendas. You bring that to anyone in David Zaslav's team, and your content is not getting made. You're not getting the job. You may not be ridiculed, but you might. But you're going to be shown the door. In addition to a trio of execs at the vice president level will work across regions worldwide with Warner Brothers Discovery's previously announced creative and business councils composed of the company's top division heads to oversee specific functional areas of DEI focus. Vice President of Workforce, Christian Hug of VP Pipeline Programs, Grant Ann Moss, Content and Productions, who oversaw workforce and content respectively as part of the WarnerMedia's equity and inclusion leadership team, will depart the company after a period of transition. That's interesting. So the previous people who were running the DEI effort, diversity, equity, and inclusion, are departing. I wonder why that is. Well, I'm not wondering that much because I can tell you. They're departing because the way they behaved, the way they communicated, the way they were trying to further DEI did not respect the brands. That's why you had Batgirl. That's why you have Constantine, the TV series coming out that has the wrong focus on the character, the brand, the casting. What does your proposal do for the brand? That's all they care about. And at the new diversity office, as opposed to the old woke diversity, you can have a diversity, equity, inclusion office if it's run properly. It's not woke. It just offers everyone opportunity. And for them to invest, you'll see, they have a minuscule staff. They have the smallest number of people, very, very little resources going into this. So it's not going to dominate anything. It's not going to control anything. It's like suggestion boxes. This is what all the companies will ultimately probably restructure to do. I mean, I can't say for sure. Who knows? Maybe Disney holds out longer and is able to not make changes right away. Whatever happens with Disney, that's right now is up to the activist investor Dan Loeb to push them to do better things. But when you see a successful model in business, very often we do follow each other around. We create what worked well for somebody else for us. So they left because their nonsense was not going to be continued. Whether they were asked to leave or they saw the writing on the wall and they were like, yeah, this office no longer has any power. And the way it's structured, it's impossible to have power. Again, they're there to make suggestions. Like your friend's mom. Like, hey, how about if you make a movie about this? Like, oh, okay. Hey, thanks for the suggestion. The new Warner Brothers DEI team will work with the previously appointed CNN EVP, Executive Vice President, of Integration and Inclusion, Janita Du, Warner Brothers Discovery Senior Vice President for Ad Sales and Inclusive Monetization, Shireen Russell, and Monica Neal, who also leads DEI Communications and Marketing for the company. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Sadiq shared some of the reasoning that guided the restructuring of his team. This interview has been edited for length and clarity. So again, let's see what it says, but I'm telling you, when they say that they've restructured the team with an international focus, this is the formalization. Structure really dictates everything. You structure something a certain way, there's only so much that it can do. But let's see what it does. You know what I think already. What were the guiding principles behind reorganizing the DEI division, they ask. When I joined WarnerMedia, I headed up international on the equity and inclusion team, and I realized I can't do international by myself, so I started establishing the regional leads. Before I came along, there wasn't an international team. The U.S. in the past looked after everything. It's been difficult for that team to do everything, so this provides very specific structure. I do believe that's important for us to drive change. We need to focus on markets. North America, EMEA, Latin America, and APAC are unique in their challenges. In the past, we tried to do everything behind being the DEI team for every single region. So they had all their resources for diversity, equity, and inclusion were run out of one main office, pushed into all the markets. Okay, we did some amazing things, but we want to ensure that we have teams focused on the region whose sole responsibility is driving diversity, equity, and inclusion within the space and truly understand what challenges and opportunities exist there. As we think about our staffing, we base it on our workforce and operational footprint in the region. The U.S. team is going to be the biggest team based on the amount of staff and productions there. followed by the EMEA team and Latin team, and APAC. That is to ensure we're able to service our business as a DEI team much better rather than not having enough staff to drive change. In WarnerMedia, we had these separate independent pillars looking after pipeline programs, content, and workforce. What we've done alongside the regional teams who are there to support day-to-day and drive change, we've created a central strategy team with all those pillars in one team, which will work with the creative and business councils to drive the business objectives across the organization. Now, that means perhaps they took all of the force they had centrally in the main office for U.S. operations. Maybe they just replicated that, copied the structure and the impact that they had, the authority that they had in local creative and business decisions, and they just replicated it for those regions. Not really. Not really. Watch this question. Why are the executive titles for the region heads different? They're based on seniority and the size of the team in the region, about 14 to 15 in the U.S. Excuse me, did you just say 14 to 15 people in the U.S.? Do you know how big Warner Brothers Discovery is? We've been talking about a couple of videos ago. We were talking about the sales teams getting laid off. This is the most recent layoffs. They laid off 100 people out of 3,000 people that they have in advertising sales. 3,000 people just in advertising sales. They laid off 100, though they expect to lay off as many as 1,000 ultimately, or let go by not replacing them, whatever it is. This is the Turner. These are the layoffs from the different channels from this prior video. So, excuse me. So you lay off 100 salespeople, which is a fraction of the 1,000 that you lay off. But you're going to tell me that you have such a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the United States that you have a team of 14 to 15 people? Do you know how many people they have in just advertising sales in the United States? I don't. I mean, it's even when they lay off everybody that they lay off, they're going to still have at least 500 at an absolute minimum. So this is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. And none of their titles are like C-level titles, like top executives that are decision makers. This is acute human resources office, which again is what it should be. That's Point Man is correct. He's pointing about it. It's absolutely correct. You are allowed to make suggestions. You will make no decisions, and you will never imply to the creative or business side that what they're doing is racist or what they're doing needs to be a different focus from the value of the brands that they're supposed to be representing as employees at the company. The new DEI strategy heads are at the VP level, where their WarnerMedia counterparts were senior vice presidents. How will you ensure that new leaders have the authority, they will not, they need to affect change, especially when they are interacting within the film, TV, and corporate chiefs who make up the creative and business councils? I chair the councils. Okay, he's the chairman of the council. That has some authority. I'm going to be hands-on, and that's a bit of a difference to previous structure. Yes, we've had senior vice presidents, but that was very much operating independently. The difference here is I'm part of those processes, so you've got someone on my level with those leaders. Okay. Sadiq, we love you, man. You're good. You're good people because, it's a nice explanation, but you could be the chair of diversity recommendations, and that's what this is. They have no authority. The new Warner Brothers Discovery regime has already weathered significant criticism, that's this article, that its content and staffing decisions so far represent a step backward when it comes to diversity and inclusion. How does your team intend to address that perception? Well, I mean, with any merger, there's always that period of uncertainty where it might seem like things are going backwards. This guy is great. He's so prepared for this interview. Once we've gone through this period, we assess where we are. DEI is a never-ending journey. Just this statement, like it's a never-ending journey. He's such a great executive, this guy. This is basically like, you don't even get to judge the results of what we're doing here. That's what he's telling Hollywood Reporter. He's saying, hey, it's a never-ending journey, okay? We have to be more and more inclusive every day, all right? So what we're doing today is not the same thing we're going to be doing tomorrow. And what we're doing tomorrow is not the same thing that we even did yesterday. We're moving forward. We're international. We've got this worldwide focus now. Yeah, but if you focus on a worldwide basis, you can't have authority. There's not going to be any localized authority. Again, 14 to 15 people in the United States. If you had 14 people pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion in Australia or in like their Japanese niche market or something like that, even that I would say like, all right, maybe they're going to mess with people. But the domestic United States really core market, to have such a small group of suggestion makers, no, they're going to have zero influence. No company is perfect. And even when you're good, you're not great. This guy is so good. How do we continue to drive and make sure we don't go backwards in any efforts, whether it's in content or representation at all levels of our organization? So when, again, not only is it an international focus, so now it's not even a focus that's just like on the content, on the film and the TV, maybe the comics they're doing, but it's within the employee base as well. So the focus not only is international, but now is and localized international, diffusing their power. The local manager of the Wendy's, the local manager of McDonald's is not going to be making choices about the menu. No disrespect to those people. They work very hard. But the whole point is, no, without a major centralized authority, you can't make changes happen. You can make cutesy suggestions. That's all you can do. But now they widen the focus to include even all levels of the organization they're supposed to influence. Okay. Now that the team is announced, the strategy that I want to work on is what is the long-term sustainable change that truly drives impact? I mean, you couldn't diffuse what they're doing any more than this. Anyhow, and how do we build these processes to make sure we do that? I've reflected on this a lot. The biggest thing is, how do you ensure that every single person within an organization understands their responsibility and that we're on a journey together? It's very easy for a DEI team to say great things, but what's important is how those messages are translated across those businesses. Are your day-to-day experiences reflected? How do you bring every single person on board to understand DEI is the right thing to do? Because it's morally right, but it also makes business sense. I wish I could hire this guy, but it's definitely a little bit outside my price zone. What I will tell you is this operation that Zaslav has pointed and ensured would be restructured to fit his needs and never interfere with any of his brands or his employee hiring decisions. This operation is going to have absolutely no influence and no punch. It will have as much influence as that sign if you ever go on an airplane and they say, hey, it's very important. Let's do a little presentation that shows you like you're really supposed to put on your seatbelt. And God forbid, if the plane loses oxygen, here's how you're supposed to get your little oxygen mask. Like it's going to be this has nothing to do with the flight. It's just a little 10-minute or 5-minute thing, a 2-second thing they do before you go on with your business. And that's what this has now become. So then they ask, what channels are available for your employees to make their concerns heard? And what protections are in place for them to feel comfortable enough to be honest? Well, I've only been in my role for 30 days, but one thing in particular is transparency and the importance of two-way communication to hear people. I've just come from the U.S. and plan to, continue to speak to our staff so they feel like they're heard and express what they're feeling. Express what they're feeling. And look, there's nothing wrong with staff having feelings. It's just like you hear them out. It's like, okay, so say what you have to say. Ooh, nice that you had something to say. Thank you for that comment. As we build in the future, I don't have all the answers. I'm being honest. I believe this is built together. I want to build with our people. So he will have no influence, and none of his team will have any influence other than to say, let's make positive suggestions so everybody has an opportunity to feel included when their focus is merit for the brands. You serve the brands. You serve the brands. The brands do not serve you. Unless you're a consumer. If you're a consumer, the brands are there to make you happy and for you to enjoy and be entertained. How does the CDIO in a situation like yours work internally and externally to effect meaningful change without being used as a shield against criticism? That's exactly what they're there for, is to be a shield against criticism. That's where the accountability and the shared responsibility for this goes beyond the CDIO. It's a shared responsibility. I'm there almost as a consultant. There you go. It's exactly what I've been saying to the business. But the accountability lies with each individual, not just at the top, but across the company. Don't accuse him. If we have a particular part of the business where there's not change, I'm there to try to drive change. But we at least have to share that responsibility in order to truly impact change. It's almost a mockery, which they deserve, but it's almost a mockery. It's so close to being a mockery. I want to say it is a mockery. It's not really a mockery, but it's close. It could be a mockery. On the external piece, I do believe I have a job to do in the sense that I'm the voice of the company when it comes to DEI, but I'm not the only voice, and the business is our voice as well. I'm keen to make sure it's not just my voice, but that over the coming months and years, you'll hear from a number of people, everyone owning the DEI mission and championing it. These things are a journey, and you can't fix things immediately. Will I get everything right? Probably not. But I'm not afraid of getting things wrong. I'm afraid of not trying. And when you see him saying, did you ever see Zaslav quoted saying something like, I'm afraid of not trying? No, not really. I would wonder even if his kids say things like, I'm afraid of not trying. Maybe the kids in college or something like that. I'm afraid of not trying. No, that's not somebody with authority. They don't speak like that. I'm just telling you from experience and a couple of different interesting experiences. They don't speak like that. These are some wonderfully diverse faces, and I actually do think it's great that they've managed to come up with a way to take diversity, equity, inclusion and turn it into, look, everyone ought to have an opportunity to say what they say and have feelings about this, and you want to make a comment about that. There'll always be someone to listen to you, except that we only have 14 people for the entire United States. For all of their creative interactions, all of their vendor interactions, all of their consumer interactions, all of their employee interactions. Do you know how many customers they have? Now that they have HBO Max and they have streaming, that's literally direct customers in the millions. In the millions. That's 7 figures, maybe 8 figures. They have 14 people to talk about diversity. Let me tell you something. If I was pushing the Marxist diversity agenda, I would be extremely angry. But I would also be, no, there's nothing I could do. I'd be trapped. I'd be so like, well, everything you say is just so reasonable, Asif Sadiq. I don't know how to counter it. There is no way to counter it. Because they planned this out. They knew what they were doing. It's been eliminated, okay? The DEI office, or DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, controlling content, doing things against employees and producers because they weren't pushing the latest woke agenda. Not going to happen anymore. It's over. It's over. I'm going to put a link to this article so you can check it out for yourself below. I'll put a link to this article too. I didn't get a chance to get into this very much, but it's Congress trying to come after and threaten diverse because they're not diverse enough at Discovery for the SJWs in Congress. So they're threatening they're going to try and call them a monopoly. It's completely ridiculous. Do check out the playlist. I mean, if you're interested in this subject matter, I've done a lot on it. I'm going to keep doing more on it for quite a while. I'll give you there's a lot more to be covered. Today I was going to do a whole different thing. about do I believe they're going to sell Warner Brothers Discovery in 2 years or not, and what my thinking is, and my evidence to back it up. And I will cover that and discuss the management team also in more depth. So please be sure to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up. It's a big help when you share out the video on social media. Even if you have 10 followers, there's 10 more people that get to see what we're doing. And keep those amazing comments coming. I've been getting comments from one or two people who work for Warner Brothers Discovery. I put out my email address as well for anybody that wants to give me any tips. I haven't received anything too cool yet, but hey, your comments are plenty cool enough, so I appreciate that. But yeah, thanks for helping me get the word out. I really do appreciate it. All right, I will see you again soon with another video. And as I always say, if I don't see you, I will miss you.